Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Anna woke up to find Albrecht giving her a phlebotomy treatment and claimed on seeing another croaker. When the asset expressed her unbelief that she was helping the people holding her interned, Albrecht responded, he claimed. Anna was affrighted to suppose that Faison had ever survived, and Albrecht ominously intonated, he'll no way let you go. Latterly, Anna slept as a nanny who was and Albrecht exited the room and reported to Pascal that his internee was stabilized. When he inquired about the other treatment, the nanny informed him that Anna was induced she was Dr. Albrecht. Good, he declared. That means she's ready for the coming phase. When Anna awoke, she called out for Liesel and quailed at the sight of a cigarillo in an ashtray. Also she said as Faison's voice came from a speaker, Anna. Don't be hysterical. I've been watching over you. Albrecht, the real one, arrived at the sanitarium, pleased to see Britt back at work, and wondered when she'd be running the place again. Britt didn't want to ruin her day by arguing, and Albrecht agreed, shifting the content to buying season tickets to cheer Rocco on as he played with his academy hockey platoon. Britt advised her mama about overpassing and reminded her that no bone in Rocco's family wanted them around. Though she knew her mama would do whatever she liked, Britt noted she wanted to keep her distance. In the break room, Britt declared she had no intention of forcing a relationship Rocco didn't want. Albrecht reminded her son that she was further than just a surrogate, she brought Rocco into this world and merited to be cheering him on at his hockey games. But Britt didn't want to upset Lulu any further than she formerly had. Albrecht admitted she was still worried about Britt faking her death and letting her suffer, substantially because she felt like she had to run down and wouldn't let her mama be there for her. Britt explained that at the time, she allowed. She was really dying and was thankful it was in her mama's arms. Albrecht apologized for wasting so important time on Faison and ignoring her children, wanting to make up for that by prioritizing her, Nathan, and Rocco. In the end, Britt conceded she didn't know how numerous games she could make, but asked her mama to order her a jersey at least. Waking up after having slept together for the first time, Emma assured Gio she had no regrets, and he said he felt the same. Latterly, as they ate breakfast, Gio admitted he kept awaiting Anna to walk in on them at any nanosecond. Emma lamented that it didn't feel likely and admitted to really missing her grandmother. She knew Anna was out saving the world but wished she were back home. Gio comforted Emma that Anna would return soon and reported that Sonny wanted to invite her and Anna to join them for regale. She asked how effects were going living with his forefather, and he said it was fine, but he felt like he should ultimately get a place of his own. Gio mentioned conceivably going back to PCU, but fretted that he wouldn't have an education presently. Attesting he wasn't ready to get back into music yet, Gio commended he didn't know what to do with his life rather. Emma explained that she knew she couldn't major in beast activism, so she decided to turn her passion into majoring in veterinary drug. Gio couldn't imagine doing anything other than music, but she prompted him to take some classes to maybe discover a new passion. You're hard to say no to, he beamed. Trina and Kai brazened Alexis about letting Willow get down with tried murder by defending her in court. Alexis admitted she'd checked out their substantiation and believed them, but explained that it was her job as a defense attorney to move the jury her customer wasn't shamefaced. Trina didn't understand how she could defend someone she knew was shamefaced, and Alexis allowed that occasionally that was the case, but there was nothing she could do about it. She also suggested that if they'd come forward sooner with their involvement with the firing, she might have been suitable to help them avoid getting themselves in trouble. Kai and Trina proposed that if Michael was put on trial, they could come forward with what they knew also, but Alexis advised them to stay until the jury came back with a verdict in Willow's case. Running into Dante outside of Bobby's, Chase explained he'd spoken to internal affairs that morning and told them everything. While Dante was pleased, Chase impressed upon him that while he went right over to the line, he no way crossed it, and wanted Dante to know he'd no way destroy substantiation. The acting police manager explained he still had to probe what happened, and he'd to know how far Chase would go to cover Willow, just like he'd to figure out how far he'd go to cover his own family, Michael. Dante added that he was going over the case again to see if there was anything he or anyone differently might have missed that could interlace Michael. Chase appreciated that and prompted Dante to keep going. Indeed, if Willow is set up shamefaced, because the only way to save her would be to prove Michael did it. Hero. Nina stopped by Drew and Willow's place to take Willow out to distract her from the trial, but Drew informed her she wasn't at home. Nina wondered audibly if Willow maybe just wanted to get down from him, and was glad they had a chance to talk. She thanked him for everything he'd done for her son at the trial, but asked that if she wasn't acquitted, he step back and let her take care of Willow herself. Nina wanted her own attorneys to handle the appeal process. Drew couldn't believe she was hoping her own son would be condemned so she could step by and save the day. Nina blasted Drew for blowing up Alexis's strategy by forcing her to put him on the stage. "You came off as deranged," she yelled. "The only good thing that came out of it was everyone could see why so numerous people want to shoot you doubly in the reverse." Drew claimed that he was the only one Willow could count on and reminded her that he was the bone who got Alexis on board. Nina reminded him that during her ending statement, the attorney said Willow was shamefaced, and Drew argued it was just a slip of the lingo. But Nina refused to let her son go to captivity for 20 times just because she'd had the mischance of hooking up with him. Think of the children. Willow entered the Bad Gen Cafe to meet with Michael and plaintively wondered if he was planning to have her arrested again. Michael invited her to sit down and revealed he wanted them to put their issues away to concentrate on the kiddies, specifically to bandy what would be to the kiddies if she were set up shamefaced. Michael explained that he'd a meddled up nonage and didn't want that for his own kiddies. Willow agreed about wanting to cover them, and Michael assured her that he'd make sure that Wiley and Amelia visited her in captivity as much as possible. He wanted them to tell the kiddies together about where she was going, and Willow realized he was only going to let her have access to the kiddies if she went to captivity. She wondered what would be to this plan if she weren't set up shamefaced. She wanted to make sure that he'd still let her see the kiddies if she didn't go to captivity, but Michael didn't want the kiddies anywhere near Drew. Willow wanted them to set aside their wrathfulness and put their children first, but also her phone chimed, and she learned that the jury had reached a verdict, the moment of truth. When Dante entered the courtroom, Justine ordered him to find out how that business cam footage faded before they considered reinstating Detective Chase. Kai and Trina lamented not being suitable to tell Michael what they knew, but Kai decided to approach him and told Michael he didn't suppose he merited what Drew said about him on the stage. At that moment, Drew entered and saw the two men shaking hands. Chase thanked Alexis for helping Willow because he knew she couldn't have done what she was indicted of. After Nina arrived, Drew grew anxious that Willow wasn't there yet, but she soon showed up and apologized for cutting it so near as the judge entered and called in the jury. After reading the verdict, the judge asked Willow to rise as the four-person blazoned "We, the jury, find Willow Tate not shamefaced." Nina cried out excitedly and clapped her hands, Justine lowered, Alexis stewed, Drew beamed, and Willow looked stunned. Do you suppose Willow will really get down with tried murder? How far will Michael go to cover Wiley and Amelia now that she's been set up not shamefaced? Should Albrecht and Britt back off of Rocco? Could Faison really still be alive? Partake your GH opinions, propositions, and prognostications in the commentary below. Monday dawned in Port Charles with the kind of uneasy calm that never lasted. The air felt thick, heavy with the aftershocks of a verdict that had already split the town in half. Willow Kane was free, but freedom in this place rarely meant peace. It meant negotiations. It meant threats wrapped in polite smiles. It meant promises whispered in shadows and bargains that demanded their price. Alexis Davis knew that better than anyone. She found Drew Kane early, before the day could scatter them in opposite directions. Her heels clicked against the floor like punctuation marks, each step underlining the point she intended to make. She reminded him, calmly at first, then with a sharper edge, that she had done her part. She had delivered what he wanted most, Willow's acquittal. Now it was his turn to honor the deal. Scout Quartermain's name hung between them like a fragile bridge. Alexis wanted continued access to the little girl, a chance to stay in her life, to make up for all the moments she'd lost. Drew listened, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. He didn't deny the bargain, but he didn't rush to fulfill it either. Instead, he hinted at new conditions, new expectations. "You want Scout?" he said quietly. Then help me make sure Willow's kids come home. The words landed like a challenge. Alexis felt the weight of it immediately. One victory had only opened the door to another fight. Drew wasn't done asking. He might never be. Across town, Trina Robinson sat with Kai Taylor, her thoughts tangled in doubt. The anger she'd carried toward Willow since the trial began had started to fade, replaced by something more complicated. She admitted, hesitantly, that maybe Willow walking free wasn't the disaster she'd imagined. She talked about second chances, about the way truth sometimes hid behind fear and confusion. Kai listened, surprised by the shift, but relieved to hear Trina's heart softening. Their moment of reflection didn't last long. ADA Justine Turner was already sharpening her focus elsewhere. She issued a stark warning: Harrison Chase might be the next one wearing handcuffs. His interference in the case, his blurred lines between duty and loyalty, had put a target on his back. Turner wasn't done hunting, and Chase was suddenly in her sights. When Sonny Corinthos heard the news, he went straight to his son. Michael had already been dragged through enough, and Sonny wasn't about to let him become the next casualty of a war he didn't start. He made a promise, one that carried the weight of the Corinthos name behind it. "I won't let you take the fall for Drew's shooting," Sonny said. "Not now. Not ever." Michael nodded, grateful but uneasy. He knew what that kind of promise could cost. Far away from courtroom deals and family vows, Anna Devane lay trapped in a nightmare that refused to let her wake. She drifted in and out of consciousness, her body weak from the blood treatment she'd just endured. When she opened her eyes, she saw a familiar face hovering over her, Liesl Albrecht, or so she believed. Relief and confusion tangled together as Anna begged for a doctor she could trust, someone who understood her condition. "He insisted," Albrecht said softly. The name hit Anna like a punch to the chest. "Faison is dead," she whispered. Liesl's laughter echoed, cold and unsettling. "You and I both know better than that. He will never let you go." Anna's world tilted. Fear wrapped around her mind, tightening with every breath. She passed out, and when she did, the illusion slipped away. The woman who left the room wasn't Liesl at all. She reported to Pascal that the phlebotomy had worked perfectly, and that the other drug, the one twisting Anna's perceptions, had convinced her she'd been treated by her old enemy turned ally. Pascal smiled, satisfied. "Good," he murmured. "She's ready for the next phase." At General Hospital, the real Liesl Albrecht was very much alive, very loud, and very determined. She cornered Britt Westbourne with a mix of pride and pressure. She was thrilled to see her daughter back in a white coat, talking about how she hoped Britt would soon be running the hospital alongside Terry, especially with Portia suspended. But Liesl hadn't come just to brag. She had a mission. Rocco Falconeri's hockey schedule was her new obsession. She wanted jerseys. She wanted seats. She wanted to show up in the stands with those oversized foam fingers and cheer like the proud grandmother she believed she was meant to be. Britt tried to slow her down, reminding her that Rocco's family, especially Lulu, didn't exactly welcome their presence. Liesl refused to back off. In the break room, she pressed her point. Britt wasn't just a surrogate, she insisted. She had carried Rocco, brought him into the world. That made her family, whether anyone liked it or not. Their argument softened when Liesl admitted the real reason behind her push. She didn't want Britt to repeat her mistakes. She confessed that she'd wasted too many years chasing Faison, letting obsession steal time she should have spent with her children. She was still hurt by Britt's fake death, still haunted by the grief of believing her daughter was gone. But more than anything, she was sad that she hadn't been there when Britt needed her most. Britt surprised her by reaching out. She reminded her mother that when she thought she was dying, Liesl had been there. That mattered. That always would. In the end, Britt made a small concession. She asked Liesl to order her a jersey. Liesl beamed, admitting she already had. They hugged, their complicated love finding a rare moment of peace. Elsewhere, in a quiet apartment filled with morning light, Gio and Emma lay tangled in sheets and laughter. They talked about how their friendship had turned into something deeper, something that felt both terrifying and right. Gio admitted he wanted more from his life. He wanted his own place. He wanted to go back to PCU. But he didn't know what he wanted to be anymore. Music had always been his future, and now that future felt uncertain. Emma shared her own journey. She'd chosen veterinary medicine after months of not knowing where she fit. She encouraged Gio to take classes, to explore, to trust that he'd find something that lit him up the way music once had. He kissed her, smiling. "If anyone can help me figure it out," he said, "it's you." Back at Alexis' office, Trina and Kai returned, their nerves raw. They confronted her again, asking how she could defend someone they believed had tried to kill Drew. Alexis didn't dodge the truth. She told them she believed them. She told them she hated the position she was in. But she also reminded them of her role. She wasn't the one who brought charges. She wasn't the one who submitted evidence. Her job was to fight for her client, no matter how messy the truth might be. They worried about Michael. They feared that, with Willow free, the spotlight would turn on him next. Alexis urged them to wait. "Let the verdict stand," she said. There would be time to decide what came next. Outside Bobby's, Dante and Chase faced each other again. The tension between them was thick, built on suspicion and loyalty pulling in opposite directions. Chase swore he hadn't tampered with evidence, hadn't crossed the line. Dante wanted to believe him, but he couldn't ignore the nagging doubt. He admitted he was having everything reviewed, searching for anything that might point to Michael. Chase surprised him by encouraging it. If Michael was guilty, he said, then proving it was the only way to truly clear Willow's name. Their friendship hung in the balance, stretched thin by the weight of the truth. Meanwhile, Nina Reeves showed up at Drew and Willow's place, ready to whisk her daughter away for a day of distraction. Drew told her Willow had gone for a walk. Nina seized the opportunity to speak her mind. She thanked him for hiring Alexis. Then she drew a line in the sand. If Willow had been found guilty, Nina's lawyers would have taken over the appeals. She accused Drew of wanting the worst so he could play the hero. She tore into his courtroom performance, reminding him how his emotional testimony had nearly wrecked everything. "I won't let my daughter spend her life in prison because she had the bad taste to fall for you," Nina snapped. Drew fired back, but the damage was done. Their truce, if it had ever existed, was in ashes. At the Bad Den Cafe, Willow and Michael sat across from each other again, their earlier conversation echoing in the silence between them. Michael explained why he'd called her. He talked about plans for the children if she was found guilty, about keeping their family connected through prison walls. Willow asked the question that mattered most. What if she wasn't guilty? Michael's answer was firm. The kids wouldn't be around Drew. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. The jury was back. The courthouse filled quickly. Faces familiar and tense took their seats. Justine Turner pulled Dante aside, still convinced Chase had something to do with the missing footage. Kai approached Michael, quietly telling him he didn't believe Drew's version of events. They shook hands as Drew walked in, his jaw tightening at the sight. Chase thanked Alexis, convinced she believed in Willow's innocence. Nina arrived, eyes searching. Willow rushed in last, breathless but determined. The judge called for order. The jury filed in. Time seemed to slow. In the final moments, the verdict was passed forward.